Public comment meeting. Before Mayor Parker calls the meeting to order, we ask that you please turn off all electronic devices. For those of you who have requested to speak, there are 2 podiums in the chamber. The podium in the back is for individuals with mobility concerns. We ask all other speakers to step forward to the front podium. Each podium has a countdown clock located to the speaker's right that will indicate how much time is remaining. When you have 30 seconds left, a bell will sound. When your time has ended, please wrap up your comments. Before you begin your comments, please state your name. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Fort Worth City Council public comment. I will call us to order.
Tonight's invocation will be by Pastor Stephen Blandino from 7 City Church. Please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledges of allegiance.
Shall we pray? Lord, we come to you with hearts full of gratitude because of your mercy, hope, and loving kindness. This evening, we pray for Mayor Parker, our councilmen and women, our city manager, and their staff. We ask that you would give each of them your strength and grace and courage. We ask that you would guide them by your word and your spirit, and that you would bless their families and cover them with your favor and goodness. As our city leaders meet this evening, direct their thoughts, their discussions, and their decisions. Help them lead with integrity and serve with humility and make decisions in a spirit of generosity as they work for the good of our city. And as they lead Fort Worth into the future, we ask that you would fill them with the wisdom and knowledge of your perfect will. Be honored in each of their lives this evening, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
The first item of business will be approval of the minutes from the August 8th, August 10th, and August 15th council meetings.
Move to approve.
Got a motion and a second, council. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Mayor, that concludes all of the business items.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Adrian Smith, followed by Dan Hayes.
We are still trying to reach Mr. Smith.
Okay, we'll try again in a moment. Dan Hayes, followed by Bob Willoughby.
Good evening. My name is Dan Hayes, and I live in District 11. Tonight, I'm finishing my progress report on East Lancaster Avenue, focusing on transit. To recap, a consultant is working with the city to determine a final roadway redesign and a transit recommendation, but there is disagreement between NCT COG and Trinity Metro on the transit mode. Trinity Metro is recommending bus rapid transit in a dedicated lane next to the median. Route 89, which serves the Lancaster corridor, has the highest ridership in the city. A logical solution to increase ridership and improve a historically disadvantaged corridor is through a transit mode that substantially changes the way people perceive transit and will attract redevelopment. BRT does that. One major concern expressed by some is losing a traffic lane that would be dedicated to BRT. But BRT or no BRT, the number of travel lanes on Lancaster needs to be reduced. We are killing and maiming pedestrians at the rate of 1 every 7 or 8 weeks. The roadway has never been sized for the traffic it carries, and its width and visual cues to drivers are likely contributing factors. East Lancaster is at a crossroads. The right transit can be a catalyst for economic redevelopment. These headlines reflect an understanding of that fact, or do they? The value is seen in the near South Side neighborhood. They can't wait to get TexRail. What about East Fort Worth? In 2019, East Lancaster Avenue property owners took the courageous step of obligating themselves to pay more property taxes with the establishment of a public improvement district. Now Trinity Metro is recommending an equally bold step by advocating for a robust transit solution that can better serve the current ridership and also attract developers who are overlooking a commercial corridor ripe for redevelopment. There's ample proof of the value of transit in attracting redevelopment. In Cleveland's case, the 54th largest US city, that was $9.5 billion over the first 10 years of their BRT. Other cities have similar stories to tell. Transit is a symbiotic relationship between the people, the built environment, and the transit mode itself. Transit can create a sense of place. Two things I told my kids when they were growing up is you always have money for the things that are important, and aim low boring, aim high soaring. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Our next speaker is Bob Willoughby, followed by Irby Foster.
And we're still trying to get a hold of Mr. Willoughby.
Irby Foster will be followed by George Childs. Mr. Foster here. George Childs. George Childs will be followed by Deetra Hicks.
My name is George Vernon Childs. I live in District 11. I maintain the consideration of what the first three letters of the phrase warrior culture spell, W-A-R, is significant to show that what that phrase represents does not belong in the neighborhoods of Fort Worth. I recently saw a video of a program aired on August 18, 2020, wherein a guest recounted describing police going on duty as entering the battlefield. Battlefield? I consider it highly significant that this was said 10 months after Ms. Jefferson was killed by taxpayer-supplied ammunition. I'm here because the person who committed that crime was hired after he made it plain he regarded that as an alternative to entering the military because it offered action and adventure. I believe that police departments exist to keep action and adventure out of people's lives, not to provide it for their members. In polar contrast, the primary purpose of any military force is to kill people and break things. If articles in law and policy journals are any indication, the warrior culture manifests at all levels of law enforcement. The owner of a tactical firearms training company, when asked about the FBI hostage rescue team, replied, quote, SRT has to remember they're law enforcement officers, they're not commandos. And that's the big thing. You get a lot of officers who want to be commandos in the military, they go to the FBI. They've got to remember that's their mission, unquote. This is not to say this person would disfavor the warrior culture when he thought it appropriate. Among other examples, he was a Delta Force member of the Task Force Ranger in Mogadishu on October 3rd and 4th, 1993, when the warrior culture was definitely appropriate. I suggest that when the warrior culture is not appropriate, it would be good to remember that because war is based on an us and them mentality, on killing total strangers, it follows that war is the ultimate othering. This city, like all of this nation, is faced with providing redress for centuries of disparity made possible by othering, the eternal, devoted enemy of equality under the law. Killing strangers is much easier when not only the lives being taken are trivialized, but the act of taking is trivialized as well. On at least one local radio talk show, it is standard to refer to any fatal shooting by police as a pop and drop. Perhaps it would be informative for City Council to inquire as to what extent, if any, pop and drop is a part of the informal lexicon of the Fort Worth Police Department.
Deetra Hicks, and Deetra will be followed by Malik Austin.
Hi, I'm the pastor of True Praise Spiritual Church. Charlie, that's over District 4. I had communication with him after I left here, and he informed me that he was going to do what he could do, right? So he did, and I see trash cans all the way up and down Lancaster, but nothing's on Kentucky and Presidio. And so that's where the problem is. I invited him to, while we were down there, to give ice water and drinks and food, because you couldn't dictate to me what we can and can't do. If y'all are the ones who created the ordinances in the first place, then you ought to have that same rule applied to the shelters, the cleanliness of the shelters, the food. They should get 3 nutritious meals a day. They should have proper shelter. The disabled area where the people stay, I know for a fact that it is bed bug fested. I know that for a fact. Been doing this since I was 26 years old. Now I'm 61. And so I know what I'm talking about. So we got the nice grade A on all of the places that I complained about. And I understand that everything works hand in hand. This city received $2 billion. That's the manager, city manager, $2 billion. You got a $185 million project taking place on Lancaster, but we cannot give the poor some ice water when it's hot. We cannot give the poor some nutritious meals. We cannot give them clothing or shelter. I know this for a fact. Here's the problem. Toby Owens is the CEO. So I looked at all of the people who were lined up for the financial part. He makes almost $200,000. And so I know that this is federally funded. 3 minutes is not going to get it for me to tell you everything that I know. So if you're going to have that type of money invested on Lancaster, it's more than just Lancaster. Invest that in the poor. Invest that in the folk who are disenfranchised. Invest that. People voted for you guys to be where you are. So you can't tell me that you can't do nothing about it because you created these ordinances. You created the signs that says, don't feed the animals, because that's basically what it's saying to me. And it's offensive to me. It's offensive to me. And so this is why I'm here, and it can go on deaf ears, but I'm going to keep coming back until somebody hears me about the poor. Because if anybody has God in their heart, you ought to care about your brother or your sister. You ought to care about anybody.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Have you been in touch with Tara Perez by chance?
I have, and
Okay.
she gave me information for a health card and I forgot I don't know what the other is, but
Okay.
I don't need a health card. I could get
You
a
need
health
more
card.
information. I totally understand. I just want to make sure. We'll be following up. Thank you very much, Pastor Hicks, for coming. Our next speaker is Malik Austin, followed by Liz Badgley.
Good evening to the council and the state of the city. Last time I was here, I addressed the state of the city with our young folks not having no place to go with nothing to do. We are at budgeting at this point. We have a city of 1 million people. You can't have big ideas and small minds. It ain't gonna work. We have a crisis of illiteracy. Illiterate children become violent children. And we have to, not only 19% of our children are reading on 3rd grade level, 21% account for people who look like me. So that comes down to 3.99 that kids are reading on grade level. That is a problem in this city. We have to bring in amenities to the city, Mayor. You got to create entertainment districts, art districts. Our kids got to have something to do. You cannot leave this city with nothing to do and the children with no place to go. It has to be 360 degrees. Fort Worth is 353 miles square long. So we have to think like that. I'm not going to address, that's why we have issues like Como. I was out there. My team put their life on the line, saved lives, put ourselves in the way, a harm's way. But that was not a good picture, and the city shouldn't look like that ever again. So we need to, while we got $130 million at the table, we need to invest in skating rinks, bowling alleys, whatever it takes to offset the violence. But this literacy problem is a problem that we're going to have to deal with. So I ask you to partner up with 405SD and tackle this problem. If you do not, the city will continue to be violent. and it's gonna be violent. High school dropout rate will be high. Infant mortality will be high. And then continue to be high until we dig in and not be so self-serving, but serve the people as you were bound by oath to do. That's the only thing I ask. I'm not here to chastise anybody because we got a crisis. I'm here for solutions. A young brother in District 6 next year put 2 towers up on them blocks and put officers in them corridors if we're going to continue to have block parties in Como. Invite them to use the center for the block party. Listen to the people who've been here. I know this city. I know the atmosphere of this city. And I don't want to see the city roll back into the 90s, and that's what we're flirting with. I ask you, take a little time, talk to the people who are out there, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Our next speaker is Liz Badgley, and I apologize, Liz, if you'd rather be called Lizzie. It's okay. Okay, and Lizzie will be followed by Bishop Kirkland.
Good evening, Council. Hear ye, hear ye. My name is Lizzie B.U., and I present my free thoughts on the proceedings of the Fort Worth City Council. As we all know, reading is fundamental, and in regards to the concerning precedents of fellow tax-paying Fort Worthians being banned from this very chamber, please allow me to quote the wise words of Silence Dogood, otherwise known as America's oldest founding father, the one and only OG for American independence, Benjamin Franklin. Franklin stated in an essay published in 1722 titled Freedom of Speech that without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as public liberty, without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man. Franklin went on to argue that the American freedom of speech is a sacred privilege, essential to free governments, and that the security of property and the freedom of speech always go together. And in those wretched countries where a man cannot call his tongue his own, he can scarcely call anything else his own. Whoever would overthrow a liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech, a thing terrible to public traitors. I urge this council to reverse their decision and unban Adrian Smith, Bob Willoughby, Manuel Mata, and Donnell Ballard from these chambers. Thank you, council.
Our next speaker is Bishop Kirkland, followed by Jim DeLong.
I want to start by especially my friend who's coming after me, because it sounds like we live in two different Americas. In the words of Mark Twain, there are two Americas, one that set the captive free and one that captives is free. And the sad part is, gentlemen, those of you who are not my persuasion, you probably wouldn't last 3 or 4 weeks in my skin if you had to be stopped in these city streets by our beloved police department. I came to you, my last visit was right after you turned down the notion of what the people of the city want. You guys are not an independent force. You're here to speak for your constituency. Every report that you have says what we need. Every report that you've read, you pay big money for all of those reports, yet you ignore them. The last time we was here, I got marred in my village because I said I was proud of Ms. Bivens. I was proud to call you my mayor. And I said and gave other people some accolades. But the problem that we're having right now, to them I look like a traitor because it looks like nothing is happening. And you know what we want. We're not asking you. We're not pleading with you. And for those of you who say, and I hear all your sly remarks, well, I'm not vested in Fort Worth. The people who you call when there are problems are not the people with their boots on the ground. You don't call us because you know that we know the real truth. I've been on this battlefield for over 26 years. I believe Mr. Terrell was mayor, Mr. Bob Boland, Mr. Terrell was city manager, and Bob Boland was mayor. I've been here a long time. I'm not going anywhere. I desire to go somewhere. We're not asking, we're demanding. And I understand I'm not real popular in these chambers, but that's okay because Plato once wrote, no one is more hated than those who speak the truth. If you cannot handle the truth of the crisis of our city, I suggest that you find something else to do. We're not asking, we're demanding that you come and sit down with the real leaders of our city, those who are on the ground, those who are protesting, Chris, those who are feeding, those who are making action. And I don't know how in the hell I can't get a phone call for your meetings. If you don't invite me to your meetings and you keep calling these peons to your meetings who want to motivate you and inspire you, making you think you're doing something when you ain't doing a damn thing for our people. We're sick and tired of being tired. I've sat down too long. I've been quiet too long. Mr. Williams, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, Chris, Ms. Bivens, I'm begging you. Let's sit down at the table and do what's right for all of our citizens. And we're tired of dying 6 bullets in a man's back, and you could justify that?
Our next speaker is Jim DeLong, followed by Gerald Banks Sr.
Good evening. My topic tonight is decorum. Last city council meeting was pretty wild. It reminded me of the Wild West a bit. And I spent some time looking at, what's it called here? Rules of Procedure, City Council of the City of Fort Worth. And there's rules of conduct. You know, we can at least be civil with one another. We might not agree, but we can be civil with one another. And part of the rules of conduct are there as guidelines when we speak in front of you. And I'm going to make a suggestion. I don't know if it's valid or not because I don't know how everything works on your side. But I would encourage you, Leanne, when people get out of hand and they are not following the rules of conduct, maybe that's more for you to engage with them than Mayor you. Because what happened last week, we became people against people. And there's some people that want to have that on film, that want to show it to other people, to rile other people, and maybe we go, hey, time out. Let's take a look at the rules of conduct. And everyone on the dais should follow them. Everyone in this room should follow them. I sat here a while back, and I consider myself a nice guy. Maybe you don't, but I consider myself a nice guy. I was called a white supremacist from the dais because I didn't agree with somebody. What? You guys are leaders. You guys should be above that, and we as people should be above that. When we talk to you, I can share concerns, but I should be able to do it civilly. And if we can't be civil, again, we have the rules of conduct. And I think instead of making it council member, mayor against person, we have a city attorney that says, this is the law, these are the rules of conduct, we can't do what we're doing here, we're gonna have to stop it. This might help it from becoming personal between you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gerald Banks Sr., followed by Carolina Rodriguez.
Evening, Gerald Banks Sr., District 5. Out of control. Fort Worth is not safe at all because we have young folks and old folks dying from shootings back to back. And if that's not from citizens killing each other, it's the police killing citizens. Your stats count the ones that you want people to know about, but what about the ones that don't make the news? There is something you can do about it. You just don't. Where are the real leaders of this city, and why don't they speak up or do something about it? Paid to be quiet is not a solution. I've said all of this before, 6/6/23 on my last speech. How long before it comes a reality and not just a threat about a mass shooting in Fort Worth once again because of the BS that's going on? 7/3/23 came about. several dead. Don't continue to piss on our heads and tell us it's raining. Have more respect of these chambers, being that it belongs to the citizens as well. The way thugs, cops treat people has to stop, and we as a people has to treat people as we would like to be treated, with respect, dignity, and most of all, honor. The real honor is lost in Fort Worth, even though you act, and that's just it, what it is, an act. When it comes to caring about people, just as long as you get what you want, act like you care, it works. Silence can be dangerous. Hitler, the Klan, and others silenced people first by threats, bans, then death. Why would the truth be silenced unless it's true? The community deserves better and need to know the truth about Fort Worth, good or bad. This is a democracy, not a dictatorship, and should be treated as such. I appreciate you listening, but I'm gonna tell you just like this right here. Out here, it's not working. Back there, the citizens need to be in that workshop back there that y'all got going on, and that they'll let their voices be heard back there. Because when you come out here on this right here, y'all not listening. Y'all don't even see it.
Will be followed by James Smith.
So I'll start with a quote. There is no greater tyranny than which is perpetrated under the shield of the law and in the name of justice. Which means like you can stomp all over people's rights because you're just doing it for the better good. But I was just wondering, aren't you? I think Mayor Parker is a lawyer. And I think we have a city lawyer too. I guess I didn't hear of Houston versus Hill, which is case law that says that those guys that got thrown out, it was okay for them. That wasn't okay for them to be thrown out. It's Houston versus Hill. It's case law. So not only did you violated the law too. Houston versus Hill. Look it up. Houston versus Hill. Case law. It says that that you can't be kicking people out just because of their views. But I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit too about some of the gang violence that's here in Fort Worth. I don't think there's very many. The definition of gang is a group of organized criminals, right? The only group of organized criminals I see is the Fort Worth Police Department with their clubhouse over on Felix Street. Me and Manuel Mata go out a lot and we film the police, and we've seen a lot of violations, rights violations, and they do it on film when we have our cameras up. What are they doing when we don't have our cameras up? Let's just take a few of their body cams and just look them over, all right? I'm at all times of the night I'm around. Here's one that I saw the other day they had a traffic stop, and it was a fresh one, meaning that I caught it right when they turned the lights on. Come to find out, the reason for the traffic stop was because the guy in the back seat was seen with a known gang member 2 hours earlier. What? That's not a reason for a traffic stop. That's a violation right there. They tried to get him to get out to search their vehicle. They couldn't. One lady in there was smart enough to say, I don't consent, so they brought the drug dogs. That was a violation of Rodriguez versus USA because they were supposed to be doing that for, with the drug dog, it was a free sniff. In other words, a free sniff is when they sniff the car out during the traffic stop. But it was an unlawful traffic stop, so that was another violation. So we got 2 violations right there on that one. The other one I saw is that another fresh stop was over off 28th Street, a man in a wheelchair, no shirt, no shoes, kind of wheeling up and down the sidewalk. They just took him for criminal trespass because the man in the store called and asked for them to check on his welfare. But instead of checking on the welfare and bringing him over to the diversion center, they took him to jail on criminal trespassing. And with criminal trespassing, you're supposed to be asked to leave first. We have about 10 criminal trespass arrests a day at the Fort Worth County Jail, 10. And they're usually homeless people that lose all their stuff after they get arrested. So if they're doing all this stuff in front of us, what are they doing behind our backs? Right? Do I have 30 more seconds or am I done? Oh, yay, okay. Okay, let's see. 30 more seconds. Let me see here. What else was I thinking to talk about? I guess that's it. I got more, but I can't remember. But that's it enough. Thank you.
Our next Smith, who will be followed by Adrian Smith. I think we had a wrong phone number input. We've figured that out.
Good afternoon, council. Whether I'm sitting in the back or sitting in the front, There's a memory that continues to haunt. Then you factor in a pending appeal, and a shift in the narrative begins to be real. Being knowledgeable at the early age of 6, I was aware that the Kennedy assassination was a calculated hit. Then his brother, and then Reverend Martin Luther King, educated me on what a narrative really means. Now back to nearly 4 years, at a time of celebration and remembrance, we're back to fears. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? It's our safe bet our emotions are plenty. I hate to go into many thoughts thinking of what certain people's dollars have bought. We're not sure what the outcome of Aaron Dean's appeal will be. It's a daunting task to even fathom. But you take your mind and you half full it, that the conviction will stay or the appeal will be granted. That brings us to the city of Fort Worth. It's been nearly 4 years, and you've yet to honor Tatiana Jefferson, as you assured me that you would. Not the community center, not the street topper, not the mural, something from the city, because this young lady lost her life in the city of Fort Worth. And if you watch the trial that I watched, beyond a shadow of a doubt, your officer was wrong, despite the narrative that's been portrayed for the last 4 years. Policy and procedure cost Tatiana her life. And I'm hoping that the policies and the procedures that caused this have been corrected, have been modified, that this won't happen again. I live with this every day. You get to be annoyed by me maybe once, twice a month. But for 365 days a year and for the rest of my life, this is my reality. So I want you guys to take this incident seriously, because personally, for the last 4 years, I don't think you have. Accountability for Tatiana Jefferson. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Adrian Smith.
Yes, Adrian Smith. I thought you all were going to try to play some type of game tonight, but I want you all to know that I'm here present at City Hall outside in protest as it relates to my trespass order and Mr. Bob Willoughby, to the mayor and to the city council. Know that I'm truly fighting for the betterment of all Fort Worth. I feel we are heading to a point of no return with our current elected officials, which is you, as it relates to how you make decisions on behalf of our city. The only thing that stands in opposition to the point of no return I speak of is our constitutional right for redress without fear of punishment or reprisals. As a former mayoral candidate, city council candidate, and native of Fort Worth, as well as Bob Willoughby being a former city council candidate, our constitutional right for redress has come under personal attack by you, Mayor Parker, and the Fort Worth City Council. Let's be clear on one thing. Regardless of the position we currently find ourselves, we are not stopping. So I want you all to know that Ms. Bivens, you said reading was fundamental. You tried to belittle me on last week, but it's all good. Ms. Bivens, since reading is fundamental, as it relates to your procedures, rules of governance, or your council procedures 5.4.3, and I quote, "The public has the right to criticize policies, procedure, programs, or services of the city, or of actions or omission of the city council or city staff." So I just want you to know, Ms. Bivens, reading is fundamental. And I want you all also to know, it's not personal. Nah, it hasn't gotten personal. Since you all like to keep everything business, we're gonna keep it business right now. We're gonna keep it business right now. Lawsuits are coming. Are you worried about the money? The lawsuits are coming. And I heard my time is timing out. Mayor Parker, the welcoming party will be waiting on you when you come out. Good night, everyone.
Council, that's the conclusion of our speakers this evening. Thank you for attending.